Hello, hello. Welcome to OpalRoseOracle. My name's Adeshpurankaur, and welcome to another Venus Day story time. This is for everyone, but especially for the little lights in our lives. So if you have children, they are most welcome. Feel free to get a drink of water, a blanket, a stuffed animal. You can dress up. This is a story time where we are going to continue our book, Changing Woman and Her Sisters. And this week, we're going to read a new story. This one, and I'll work with you with the glare. So this is Macha, the goddess of horses. She is a Celtic goddess. So we will begin our tale of Macha, the goddess of horses, a Celtic goddess. Macha, with her sisters Morgan and Badb, was revered by the Celtic people of ancient Ireland. Because the Celts did not practice the art of writing, what we know of their religion and mythology must be pieced together from the archaeological evidence and the fragments of their myths that were preserved as folk tales by early Christian monks. Archaeologists have found many statues of a horse goddess throughout Celtic Europe. The horse was an important symbol of fertility to the Celts. Some statues show a goddess standing beside a foal, a horn of plenty in her hand. This tale about Macha is preserved in an epic story from the ancient Ireland called the Ulster Cycle, and it shows her connection to horses. The story is set in Ulster, a county in Northern Ireland. And so, we begin our tale. First, I'll let you get a good look at her. Look at all those horses. In ancient times in Ireland, there lived a good cattle farmer whose name was Crunduchu Mac Agnoman. His wife died, leaving him 4 sons to raise on his own. He worked hard and did the best he could, struggling day and night to care for his children, tend to his cows, and keep bread on his table. He was not an old man, but Crunduchu Mac Agnoman grew haggard and careworn under the weight of his responsibilities. He smiled seldom, and he never laughed at all. One cold winter evening, Crunduchu, and forgive me if I'm pronouncing it incorrectly, Crunduchu sat exhausted at his dinner table, rocking. What is he rocking? I'm gonna have to turn the page to find out. Is he rocking a baby? Is he rocking himself? Rocking his youngest baby in his arms to calm the little one's fretful tears. Shh, it's gonna be okay. Shh. Wondering where he would find the energy to get up and milk the cows. Suddenly, the door flew open. In strode a tall and elegant lady. as lovely as a queen. Her hair was as black as a raven's feather and hung in heavy braids down to her waist. Her eyes were the color of hyacinths, her skin as pale as the first snow in winter. Without saying a word, she took the baby out of Krunduchu's arms and settled him on her hip. Immediately, the baby grew quiet and began sucking his thumb. She cleared the dishes from the table and swept the room. Laying the sleepy baby down in his cradle, she went out to the barn to milk the cows. In a short while, she was back again, a pail of steaming milk in either hand. She put the older children to bed, then built up the fire until the house was warm and cozy. I'm going to work on this light a little bit. All this time, Krunduchu watched her open-mouthed, unable to speak, not daring to speak. "Who are you?" he managed to whisper. "My name is Macha," said the woman with a smile so brilliant the room itself seemed to throb with light. From that day forward, Macha stayed with him. She tended the farm, cared for the children, and with her help, Krunduchu's farm prospered beyond his wildest dreams. No garden in Ireland grew half so many vegetables as Krunduchu's Mac agnomons. His cows produced more milk than any in Ulster. Never had the good farmer known such happiness. With Macha by his side, he seemed to bloom like the flowers in her garden. He laughed easily now and was known throughout Ulster for his hospitality and pleasant company. Now, it was Macha's habit to leave the farm for a few hours in the afternoon, and where she went, no one knew. She would finish her work and disappear into the thick wood beyond the pasture. At first, Krunduchu never thought much about this. But as time passed, he began to wonder more and more about where she might be going in the afternoon. Where is Macha going? After several years of peaceful life together, Krunchu noticed that Macha would soon be having a baby. Glad as he was, he began to wonder more urgently than ever where his wife went each day, with never a word about where she might be going or why. So one afternoon, the farmer followed his wife as she crossed the pastures and headed for the thick wood. Although big with the child growing inside of her, she moved so swiftly that he had a hard time keeping up with her and keeping her in view. Soon, he lost sight of her altogether, but he followed the trail she'd been following herself. It wound up the steep hillside, huffing and puffing with the effort of the climb. He came at last to the top of the hill. The trees grew more sparsely here, and at last he broke out of the wood and looked down on a broad plain where a herd of wild horses were grazing. Something startled the horses. Perhaps they caught the scent of a man watching them, and they began to gallop across the plain. Krundchu Mek Agnomen gasped with wonder to see Macha herself, his very own wife, running before the herd more swiftly than the wild stallion she ran, until the herd was no more than a blur of color in the distance. Bewildered, the farmer headed home again, shaking his head and wondering to himself. Now he knew for certain his wife was no ordinary woman. But when Macha returned to the farm late in the afternoon, serene as a lake on a still summer day, he said nothing of what he had seen. She seemed peaceful, right? As the time for Macha to give birth drew near, an important gathering was called in Ulster. As many as could go would be there, both men and women. I will go too, said Krunchu to his wife. Don't go, she urged him. My time is very near, and it is better you are here when the baby is born. Stay with me. But Krunchu insisted he must go with the others to Ulster. Very well, said Macha. If you must go, you must. But my husband, I beg you, say nothing of me while you are at the gathering. Our marriage cannot continue if you do. I will not say a word, the farmer vowed. The following week, the men and women of Ulster all came to the gathering. Krunchu was there along with all the rest. It was a marvelous festival, with processions and music and games and tournaments as well. At the 9th hour, the royal chariot was brought out onto the fairground, and the king's horses won all the races that day. The bards sang praises to the king and queen, the poets and the druids, the king's household, his people, and the whole assembly. Never before have we seen such horses as those that pull the king's chariot. In all Ireland, there is not a swifter pair, cried the people. My wife runs more swiftly than those two, said Krunchu without thinking. And everyone heard him. The king, who was sitting nearby, heard him as well. Seize that man, he cried. Hold him until his wife can be brought to the contest. The king's guards tied up Krunchu, and a messenger was sent to bring Macha to the gathering. When the messenger arrived at the farm, he found Macha ready to give birth that very day. She was doubled over in pangs of labor. Nevertheless, the messenger insisted she come to the gathering. If she refused, her husband would be put to death for his boasting. Macha accompanied the messenger to the gathering and went before the king. "What do you want of me?" she asked him. "Your husband claims that you can run faster than my 2 horses. If you wish to prove him right, run in the contest with them now. Otherwise, I shall have him put to death," answered the king. "Not now!" "Ugh!" cried Macha as another labor pain seized her. "Take out your swords and hack that man to death," the king commanded his guards. Macha regarded the bystanders. "Help me," she pleaded. "Don't make me do this thing. Or at least let me wait until my baby is born." But the crowd stood silent. Not one person spoke in her defense. "Then shame on you who have shown so little respect for me," she cried, and her voice rang out across the assembly ground like a clap of thunder. "Because you have shown no pity for me, I will have no pity on you. Do you not know me? I am Macha, daughter of the ocean's sun. Bring the horses beside me." The horses were brought to her and the race began. Macha ran before them as swiftly as the wind, easily outdistancing them. When she had crossed the finish line with the king's horses far behind her, she gave birth then and there to twins, a boy and a girl. Then she rose and faced the crowd, towering above them in all her power. "From this day forward, the shame you have forced on me will be the shame on your heads. When a time of oppression falls on you, every man born in this province will become as weak as a woman who is ready to give birth, powerless to act against the forces raged against them. For 9 times 9 generations, it will be so." Taking her babies, one under each arm, she gave a wild cry of sorrow. Every man who heard her cry was struck by a strange weakness, so that he had no more strength in his limbs than a woman in childbirth. Then Macha and her twins disappeared, and never again were they seen in Ireland. And that is the story of Macha, a Celtic goddess, a horse goddess. It's a powerful story of the power of respect, of dignity. And when it is not given, there are consequences. Usually by the disappearance of a powerful person. For one who is not respected and who is not treated with integrity, knows their worth, knows that they deserve respect, and to be treated with equanimity, which means an equalness, a level of respect equal consideration, to be treated kindly and with honor. And when that is not given, when honor is not given, when cruelty is given, it is just and good and self-respectful to stand up and say, this was wrong, and I'm not going to stay. I will walk away. I will leave. And when you walk away from situations that do not honor you, you honor yourself. And it teaches everyone around you what honoring really looks and feels like. So don't be afraid to walk away, to stand in your power, to say something is not right. I will not stand for it. In fact, I will speak out against it. Whether you receive support or not, that is bravery. That is courage. I know all of you have that within you. It is good to be strong enough to stand up for what you believe in. It is good to stand up for who and what you are. It is even better to say, when people put things on you that are not true, to say, no, I am not that. I know who I am. I am good. I have the capacity for good. I can do great things. I stand for truth. And I stand for justice. And then you can walk away, knowing that you have the higher ground, you have your heart and soul, and all that is good and divine standing with you. When you stand up for yourself, Macha is standing with you. You are always supported by the divine in all of its forms. I hope you all have a beautiful, beautiful rest of your Friday. Take care. Be well. And I look forward to seeing you next week. Next week's a very, very special story. I love this story. Next week is the story of Sedna. Sedna, woman of the sea. She is the Supreme Deity of the Inuit People. And she has a very powerful story to share. But that's for next week. I'm sending you all so much love, so much light, support, encouragement. I affirm the strength within you to stand up for what's right and to walk away from what isn't. Loving each and every one of you. I'll see you all next week. Bye for now.